Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our Hanamatsuri service, the service commemorating the birth of Shakyamuni Buddha. If you'd all please join me in opening meditation. In the Blessed One's presence, Lord, I have heard this. In the Blessed One's presence, I have learned this. When the Bodhisattva left his mother's womb, 2 streams of water appeared from the sky, one cool and the other warm, to wash the Bodhisattva and his mother. As soon as the Bodhisattva was born, he stood steadily with his feet on the ground and facing north, took 7 steps, while a white parasol was held over him. Surveying all directions, he made the bellowing statement, I am foremost in the world. I am chief of the world. I am the best of the world. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman Butsu. If you could all please rise, if you're able to, for the recitation of the Kyosho. Teaching. Attaining the entrusting heart, awakening to the compassion of Amida Tathagata, Buddha, through the working of the primal vow, we shall walk the path of life, reciting Amida's name, Nembutsu. At the end of life, we will be born in the Pure Land and attain Buddhahood, returning at once to this delusional world to guide people to awakening. Way of life. Guided by the teaching of Shinran Shonin, we shall listen to the compassionate calling of Amida Tathagata and recite the Nembutsu. While always reflecting on ourselves, amidst our feelings of regret and joy, we shall live expressing our gratitude without depending on petitionary prayer and superstition. Purpose. The Honganji School is a community of people joined together revering the teaching of Shinran Shonin and saying the Nembutsu. We seek to share with others the wisdom and compassion of Amida Tathagata. By doing so, we shall work toward the realization of a society in which everyone is able to live a life of spiritual fulfillment. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. You may be seated. We'll now have the chanting of Junirai. Tenin shokugyo Amira sen yozoku son Zahimi mewanako Muryo bushi shuinyo Konjiki shinjo nyose no Shamata gyo nyozobu Ryomoku jonyaku shorenge Koga chorai mirason Menzen enjo nyomangatsu Iko yunyo sennichi gatsu Shonyo tenku kushira Koga chorai mirason
観音将来観中中主十名相法将軍信くゲロマケマン古賀将来ミラソン無味無垢交渉上習得経血女国小サリ悪徳自在古賀将来ミラソン実法妙門菩薩衆無料小魔上三段一生修上願力自古賀将来ミラソン根体保険地所権前言少女明大座おひざ上女仙の古賀将来ミラソン実法将来勝負し権限人図しあな戦後尊厳上苦行古賀将来ミラソン小無常無我と薬女水月伝女の一種説法無名人古賀将来ミラソン非尊部説無悪名薬無女人悪道夫主任死心拒否尊古賀将来ミラソン非尊無料法勉強無少種悪知識往生不体死亡来古賀将来ミラソン画説非尊苦六寺修善無縁如海水小逆前言小乗者永世宗上小意向南蛮ダブ南蛮ダブ南蛮ダブ南蛮ダブ南蛮 sei 돌 옷보다 이신 오죠
If you would all please rise again for the recitation of the Golden Chain and remain standing for our first gatha in Lumbini's garden. Golden Chain. I am a link in Amita's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amita's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandos, namandos. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandos, namandos. You may be seated. Thank you again, everyone, for coming today. Today is Hanamatsuri. This is a Japanese word. The first part of it, hana, meaning flower, and matsuri, meaning festival. So it's the flower festival. And this comes from the story of the baby Buddha being born, where flowers bloomed spontaneously on the day of his birth. And supposedly when he walked the 7 steps I mentioned earlier, there was a lotus that bloomed underneath each one of his steps. So then we have this kind of, let's see, different Hanamido than perhaps you are, or at least the longtime members are used to. We have kind of a smaller get-up to go along with what's going on right now, but I think it looks really nice. We also have sweet tea around the foot of the Buddha statue there, which, for Oshoko today, instead of burning incense, you'll put the sweet tea over the Buddha. And so this is to represent the rain that fell onto the Buddha during that day as well. So today is essentially Shakyamuni Buddha's birthday. We celebrate the day that he was born, and we celebrate it a little bit differently than probably most of us celebrate our birthdays. So in America here, right, today the custom is to have like a big party, to get a cake, hopefully avoid getting your face smashed into the cake, but then also to get lots of presents, right? And we open the presents and it's fun, and it's awkward for everyone else because they're just watching you open presents. But this is not the only way that people celebrate birthdays all over the world, right? If we have only been in America and we know that tradition, then that's what we're most familiar with. But at least for myself, it was interesting to learn that, oh yeah, no, not everyone celebrates this way. There's actually a lot of different ways to celebrate birthdays. And one of the more interesting and of course more relevant to my talk today would be how people in Thailand celebrate birthdays. So Thailand, if I understand correctly, is the only nation that is declared as Buddhism as the national religion. So nowhere else is Buddhism declared the national religion except for in Thailand, and of course it goes into many different aspects of their culture, including the birthday celebrations. So very traditionally in Thailand, they don't have birthday cake, balloons, or party games. However, Western culture is starting to leak in and influence a lot of the things that they do. So currently, for children, they do have cake and usually have a small meal together with family or friends. If they are going to school, they bring some kind of goodies or something, maybe some snacks, and they hand those out to their friends. So it isn't so much that they get presents, but they give presents. It's kind of the difference where, instead of receiving, you're actually giving. And then if they're not children, right, like older, they probably go out and, have a little bit of a party, but the person whose birthday it was, they would actually pay for the drinks. So, here, right, everyone pays for the birthday person's drinks, but there the birthday person pays for their drinks, which is, again, kind of the opposite of how it would be here. Now, looking at kind of the more traditional birthday celebrations in Thailand, there isn't the birthday cakes, the balloons, the parties, but rather they go to the temple and they give donations to gain some kind of merit from giving donations to the temple. They also perhaps would donate other kinds of things like food, doing some kind of ritual there. Also, visiting family members. And there's also this kind of interesting, and I thought kind of fun tradition that they have where they will free animals, such as birds or fish. So some people like to do these actions which symbolize their feelings. So they purchase, like a bird and then set them free as they believe it'll help them feel refreshed. They could get a turtle and set the turtle free, and hopefully they have like a long life like the turtle. Or when they set fish free, believe that their life will become calm and cool, kind of like fish in the water. So that's another tradition which, very different than here, where, I don't know, maybe if you're lucky, you get a puppy or something for your birthday. But in Thailand, they buy things for the specific purpose of letting it go free. So again, this idea, kind of flipping how we understand birthdays and how we're supposed to celebrate them. Going into perhaps the Buddhist understanding or attitude towards birthdays, it's not so much that in Buddhism that we're constantly thinking about receiving or getting things, but rather the virtues that we practice. Specifically, I think one that many people are familiar with is dana, that one of giving or generosity. And this is kind of in line with the teaching that would make our birthday, like supposedly the happy one, right? It's not so much what we get in the day, but what we can do with it, right? So here, the emphasis is on generosity or giving, being able to give something to your friends or give something to the animals instead of focusing on ourself. But ultimately, rather than focusing on that one specific action, I think it's important for us to recognize that this birthday, this day that we have, what makes it important is whatever it is, the actions that we do. This ties into Buddhism in that the actions that we do end up influencing who we are, creating this identity for ourselves. Now, to illustrate this, how we have these different identities, I think it's great to understand it in this kind of metaphorical sense where we have these two kinds of birth, right? So we have the birth of that all of us are familiar with, right? It happens one time in our life. One time, right? So like the Buddha was born, all of us were born one time. But there's another birth where there's these kind of rebirths over and over again of this identity that we have in our lives, right? Who we are, who we feel we are, who we are connected to, what kind of goals are driving us. It creates this identity that all of us cling to. And eventually that identity dies, kind of metaphorically, and then we're reborn and we have this new identity. And so these identities are all created out of this craving that we have. We're all created out of these desires that we have, right? We hear craving, desires in Buddhism. That's the basis of the creation of our identities. And then so to maybe make that a little bit easier to understand, I will give an example from my life. I was trying to come up with an identity of mine that like I could use, and I don't know. The best one I could come up with for this example was that when I was in high school, I played basketball. I was not very good, so I played for the church team, not for school. And I had it in my head that I wanted to be somebody who could dunk a basketball. So believe it or not, I was not always this tall. I was actually under 5 feet probably up until middle school, maybe like 8th grade. I got like a growth spurt and grew like 5 or 6 inches the next 2 years. But I ended up getting a little bit taller, and I really wanted to dunk the basketball, mostly probably because I saw it in video games and on like highlight reels and stuff. But so I wanted to dunk a basketball. I didn't really have access to a weight room, so I did a lot of these like plyometric calisthenic exercises, like body weight exercises, where I'd be running upstairs or jumping over chairs or just stuff like that, where it's a lot of like jumping. And I was doing my best to try to achieve, the vertical height in order to dunk a basketball. When, looking back on it, really, if I had spent all that time practicing like my jump shot, I probably could have been a half decent basketball player. But instead I could jump really high, which was good for, when I tried out for the volleyball team later, but didn't really help me out too much in basketball. Anyway, I wanted so badly to do it, and I would tell people that I was doing that. And my sister's, like one of the basketball coaches, heard about it and was talking to me and said, I'll make you a bet. I will bet you $100 that you cannot dunk by the time you graduate high school. And I was like, yeah, I don't have $100. So he said, well, I'll do you one better. I'll do 5 to 1. You only have to pay me $20 if you can't dunk, and I'll pay you $100 if you can. So I tried, the best I could. I worked out whenever I had free time, and near the end of school, I could get high enough that I could dunk like a tennis ball, which was pretty high, at least for me anyway. But I couldn't dunk a basketball. And truth be told, I never paid him the $20. But after that, I kind of recognized that I don't think it wasn't possible for me to do that it wasn't something that I was able to achieve. And I mean, I kind of forgot about it. I went to college and, now I'm here. But this was an identity that I put so much into, that I put so much of my work into, and I didn't even end up achieving. But, like I said, looking back, I could have been doing a lot of different things with that time. The lesson to myself, and hopefully, that all of you can take away from this, is that it's really important to understand the time that we have in the day, the energy that we have, and how all of this is tied into these cravings or desires that we are constantly happening inside of our minds. Whatever it is that we want in life, it's what we end up putting most of our energy towards, whether it's wanting to do well at our work, wanting to be there for our family, wanting to achieve some kind of physical feat or something. But this all comes from these desires that we have. Now, looking at the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, the way that he was able to overcome suffering was he let go of all of his desires. He let go of everything that he was craving, and he was able to then get rid of all of the suffering in his life. And that's what ultimately was his main teaching. However, within our sect of Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu, we do not have the ability, or at least we believe we don't have the ability to reach that kind of state of mind, that ability to let go of everything that we have. We live, everyday lives, we have jobs, we have families, and so we are connected to this material world in a way that we can't let go of the things like the Buddha did, so we can't achieve that same kind. However, we still can benefit from the teaching and understanding that if these desires, if these cravings are the things that are causing us the suffering, trying to let go of the ones that will cause us the most hurt, and then really putting our heart into the ones that will give us the most fulfillment in our life. So understanding that this is how our identities are created, hopefully we can really reflect upon ourselves and see what it is that is creating this identity that we have, what kind of energy we're putting in, and making this conscious choice every day into what we're going to put our life into. And in doing so, we end up having a life that is more fulfilled, that does have less suffering when we understand the process in our mind that creates who we are, the process that creates our suffering, and ultimately the process that creates the end of that suffering. If you'd all please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Okay, if you could all please rise for our closing gatha farewell.
School is over for another day. Let us gather around the shrine, bow our heads and say, thank you, teacher, for your help. Thank you, everyone. Buddha's love will keep us safe till our work is done. So we'll meet again next week. Won't you take good care? Let us try to do what's right, always kind and fair. We shall spread the happiness faith in Buddha brings. Now it's time to say goodbye till we meet again. Namo Amida Butsu, sing this fine refrain. Namo Amida Butsu, sunny day or rain. Namo Amida Butsu, strong in faith remain. Namo Amida Butsu, till we meet again.
Please stay in Gassho for closing meditation. That being the case, Ananda, you can hold this too, to be amazing and astounding quality of the Tathagata. There is the case where feelings are known to the Tathagata when they arise, known when they remain, known when they subside. Perceptions are known to the Tathagata when they arise, known when they remain, known when they subside. Thoughts are known to the Tathagata when they arise, known when they remain, known when they subside. You can hold this too, Ananda, to be amazing and astounding quality of the Tathagata. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 You may be seated. Okay, now we will have announcements. Today, following service, we will have our Q&R session. So the Facebook will continue running. Everyone here, if you'd like to participate, you can come forward, and then I can do my best to try to answer any questions that any of you have. Next week is our Coffee in the Courtyard Zoom, which we will be Zooming in people who are unable to make it to the service. So look for the Zoom link sent out later. That also will be following the service, and we'll be able to check in, see how, what everyone's been up to. Hopefully get, this kind of connection still to the temple, even though you're physically unable to be here. Okay. Well, I think we also now have some in-person announcements before the video announcements.
Good morning, everybody. It is wonderful to see so many of you back here in the Hondo. We are open again. For some of you, I haven't seen you in 2 years. My name is Sharon Ito. I'm a new member of the Board of Trustees. It's wonderful to be a part of the Sacramento Betsuin, and certainly want to invite more of you, for those of you who are joining us online, please come back. We'd love to see you. We are open. There's plenty of space. We're still doing social distancing, but masks, for example, are recommended, but we are following all protocols. So please come back. We'd love to see you. We do have some new faces that we'd like to say good morning to and say thank you for joining us today. Karen Sasaki is with us. Hello, Karen. Pedro Vega, saw him this morning. He is a student from Sac State. He's studying world religions, so he is also joining us. There is Paul Weiss, who is another special guest. Good morning. And one more. I didn't have a chance to see you. Is it Blaine? Blaine, your penmanship is really tiny. So what's your last name? There you go, Blaine. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to all of our special guests. Oh, one more. Great, another Sac State student. Welcome, John. So thank you, everybody. Okay, as far as our announcements go, how many of you shop on Amazon? Okay, smile.amazon.com. Okay, so we're able to get a donation from Amazon if you shop via smile.amazon.com. So already the Betsuin has received $3,403.70 in donations from Amazon Smile Shopping. So you can visit our website to learn more, but also smile.amazon.com. Okay, there's a new class that's starting this month. It's the Introduction to Meditation with Reverend Matt Hamasaki. The first class will be held on Monday, April 18th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Additional classes will be held on the third Monday of May and June. For the Zoom link, please send an email to betsuinprograms@buddhistchurch.org. And I did want to say thank you, Reverend Matt, for your message today. We're always learning something new, and thank you for the reminder for self-reflection. And that is part of our Jodo Shinshu tradition here. The Grateful Crane Ensemble, have you heard of them? Many of us have. They are a group of many Japanese American singers who are telling the story of the Japanese American experience and paying tribute to our Issei and Nisei pioneers. And they're having a very special performance. It's a tribute to Misoda Hibari. It is at the Benvenuti Performing Arts Center in Natomas. It's the Natomas Charter School. There will be 2 shows, free shows, on Saturday, April 23rd, and another on Sunday, April 24th, both shows at 2 p.m. Tickets are free, courtesy of the Nisei Appreciation Alliance, and for those tickets, please send an email to gratefulcrane4@gmail.com. We have our Thursday night series on health and wellness. Thursday, April 28th at 6:30, the guest speaker is Dr. Yvonne Otani. She's a pediatrician with Kaiser Permanente South, and she'll speak about adverse child events and why that's important to us. So to register, please send an email to betswinprograms@buddhistchurch.org. As Reverend Matt said, we have 2 new monthly events, your Buddhist questions and responses, held today at the second Sunday on Facebook Live, and then in the Hondo immediately following the service. And then Coffee Talk, as Reverend Matt said, will be held on the 3rd Sunday of each month on Zoom. A link will be posted in the Facebook chat at the end of the service on those days. The Sacramento Adult Buddhist Association, ABBA, is offering a scholarship award. It recognizes academic achievement and community service. So graduating high school seniors and students in an accredited college, university, vocational, or technical school in 2021, 2022, and members of the Buddhist Church of Sacramento, ABBA, or an affiliated sponsored organization of the Betsuin may apply. So instructions and application can be found on our website, buddhistchurch.org, and the application deadline is April 30th. A couple of more announcements. This is specific to high school seniors. The application process is now open for the 2022 Education Awards. The Buddhist Church of Sacramento, along with its affiliated organizations, will grant awards to 2 qualified graduating high school seniors. That application deadline is May 8th. Interested seniors should visit buddhistchurch.org for more information and application materials. Golfers and duffers, the Sacramento Betsuin 12th Annual Golf Tournament will be held on Thursday, July 14th at the Dry Creek Ranch Golf Course. Entry forms, sponsorships, and more information can be found on our website. By now you should know what it is. buddhistchurch.org. This morning from 10 o'clock, the drive-through pickup of our pre-ordered Hawaiian breakfast will be held in the church parking lot. So thank you to those who have supported this church fundraiser. Again, I hope to see many of you and more next Sunday. It's so good again to see so many familiar faces and new faces as well. So thank you for attending our Hanamatsuri service. And now we'll have more video announcements.
Thank you for attending. This will conclude our service. Everyone is welcome to come up and pour sweet tea over the Buddha. Hope we see a lot of people. Yeah, people coming back. Someone had mentioned yesterday at one of the memorial services. Now, like, you have to pay attention to how the back of your head looks because it shows up on camera. So you can't just worry about the front anymore. Anyway, all right, that will conclude the service. Thank you, everyone, for attending. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with the question and response. Is anybody here, if you could speak into the mic, not that we can't hear you, but the people at home, they can't hear the question if you don't speak into the mic. But, so yeah, anybody have any questions that, like, off the top? You got a notepad. You have... Okay, yeah. Anything? No? Oh, you have one? Oh. I've always seen it as Lumbini's garden.
You know, like Madison Square Garden.
Right.
It's not Madison Square's garden.
Right. No, I guess the garden belongs to Lumbini.
Is it? Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
No, that's a good question. Yeah. I've always heard it Lumbini's garden, but I don't know who Lumbini is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We don't pay attention to that. Give that person props for.
You can ask them if they want to answer their questions on the chat.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you want to post your questions in the chat too, we have somebody. We have Koichi monitoring it. Yes. Yeah.
So my name is John, and I have this is like gonna be probably a little bit heavy. So, but I had my dog just died the other day. It's my dog. I love him. I really love him a lot, and I named him Bodhisattva when he was born. And he was in a dog fight, and he didn't survive. Through a fence, and I came home, and I have all these pictures of what happened. I just need some help to. I have a lot of help. I got a lot of family and friends. I just did this big surprise art show yesterday that I didn't even know I was supposed to do until an hour before I found him. The way I found him, and I did that last night, and we got down and we played music and did all this stuff, and I talked about it. And I just knew, I don't know when it was, but I was like, I need to come to a place that like this, and so I called places today, and you guys were open, and so I'm really glad to be here, and I am really wanting to continue the work that my dog was helping me with, because I named him Bodhisattva because what I understand about a Bodhisattva is that they are beings that dedicate their entire existence in life to the awesomeness of all the universe, and so when he was that half the size of my shoe, I realized about this being, and anyways, I'm not trying to talk all day about it. I could, but he helped me to open my heart, and in his passing, especially in this violent way, it is helping me to open my heart even further, and I really want to continue that and help to put that out in the universe more and more. So thank you for letting me be here, and I really appreciate this, and thank you guys for everything. So.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about that. I mean, pets and like dogs, I feel like are some of our greatest teachers. The way they teach us to open up our hearts and just how they're so unconditionally loving, and it's terrible that it was such a kind of violent way that your dog passed. But more often than not, we will outlive our pets, and so that also is an opportunity to learn from them of the importance that we have in each day, right? That we can't take it for granted because you really just don't know what's going to happen. So thank you for sharing that, though.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, you got one? Okay. Sure.
So we are part of the Jodo Shinshu Buddhism.
Yeah. It's, I think, not so much a question of either or, but it's both. The Buddha taught both kinds of rebirth. It's just more so, I guess, the scale of how it is. So there is these like minute like births and deaths that we have every essentially second of the day, where like there's one moment everything is happening, and then the next moment it changes. Uh, we have this consciousness that tries to make sense of the world, and so we think in a very linear way, and so each moment after another, and we kind of connect them all together. When in reality they're separate, that there's separate things happening constantly, but it's so small that it's easy for us to kind of just make it all one. So in that sense, we are like living and dying in that kind of metaphorical sense, right? Like every single second. As I mentioned today, there's, if you scale it out a little bit, there's these almost like seasons in our life where we have this identity or this idea of ourselves, and like that will die and then kind of reborn into like somebody else. And then, scaling out even more, the like physical like death and then rebirth. There's, within different sects of Buddhism, an understanding of what that means, where there's like a one-to-one reincarnation, where like you can die and then you're born as something else, either in this physical plane or in another one of the like worlds of cosmology. And then there's also maybe more of a like dependent co-arising, which is like the term that we use, where all these things are happening all at once, and so we're all essentially connected through like that, right? And so when we die, it's not that an individual dies, but it's like something, part of everything else goes away, but in terms of like science, the conservation of energy, it doesn't go anywhere, it just takes like a different form. And so it's dispersed, it becomes something else. Probably the easy way to understand that would be like in The Lion King, when Mufasa's talking to Simba, and he's like, yeah, we die, we become the grass. And then the antelope eat the grass, and then we eat the antelope, circle of life. So this kind of thing where that's constantly happening on like a huge scale on the entire earth, right? Where everything is just kind of from one thing to another. I don't know, I guess you could say like atoms maybe, but essentially like it's all just happening as this like ebb and flow, where like in the ocean, like if one drop, like changes, it doesn't really affect the ocean. So in the same way, like this is all just kind of happening constantly. But anyway, so in that sense, rebirth is happening on all those different levels. So it does happen metaphorically. It does happen literally, and the Buddha taught both for us to understand. And it's just a matter of what is going to be benefiting us in terms of like the teaching and learning, right? If our death is a concern, our rebirth, physically is a concern, then that is important, and then we should be addressing that. If our, everyday kind of rebirth or death or something big happening in our life is a concern, then that's something that can be addressed in Buddhism. And so, like, this is one of the things that's very difficult, but then also kind of nice about Buddhism, where there's no like one, straight answer where it doesn't say like one like absolute thing. It's kind of up for interpretation and however we need it at the time. So, in that sense, like Buddhism is hard because it's not such an easy path like laid out for us. We have to kind of do a little bit of work, I guess, on our part to like understand what it is or what's the most beneficial for us. So, an illustration of that point is like a lot of people say like, oh well, Buddhism is just a way of life or a philosophy, or no, Buddhism is a religion, or Buddhism is something else. It's just something that people do. So like it can be all of those things, like, and it shouldn't be limited to one of them. But however Buddhism is going to help you, that's how you should understand it. And obviously there's wrong ways to understand Buddhism. Like, don't kill people and say that Buddhists said it was okay. But like, there's a lot of different ways to interpret it that can help us, spiritually. So, yeah. Oh, Wellman.
I have a Facebook question here from Irene. There are many symbolic items in the Hondo. Which one besides the Hanamido resonates with you at this moment? And can you remind me about the Dharma wheel?
Okay.
So the Dharma wheel, it has 8 spokes, and so those correspond to the Eightfold Noble Path, which has to do with the first teaching that the Buddha ever taught. So that there is, it's often translate that like life is suffering, but really it's like life doesn't go the way you want it to. The reason why we do that is, or the reason why we suffer because of that, because we cling on to how we want life to be, and the way to get rid of that is to let go of how we want life to be, and the way to do that is the Eightfold Noble Path, which is like right view, right thought, which I guess can also be translated as right resolve, which I've been reading lately. Anyway, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, or right endeavor, right mindfulness, and then right concentration or right meditation is like the last step. So that's why there's 8 spokes, and then supposedly it's called metaphorically the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, so that's where this wheel comes from. There's another aspect of it that I could probably get into, but I'll choose not to. Anyway, so that was kind of like a it's kind of a gratitude when you like go to someone's house, you bring something, they like a bouquet of flowers and then candles because they didn't have like electricity, and then so up higher, if you see, there's also like fruit, so that's also like an offering. So same thing, go to someone's house, bring something, and then for us, because we are a Japanese form of Pure Land Buddhism, rice is very important in the culture, and so it's important for us to give rice. And like the tradition is when you cook like a pot of rice, you're supposed to give like the first scoop to the Buddha, and just to kind of show again like your gratitude, because it is so important to show that kind of reverence or gratitude to the teachings of the Buddha. So that's where that comes from. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I guess the second question I had, so during one portion of the service, it was mentioned that the inability to attain the level of, I guess, separation from desire that Buddha attained. And while one of the reasons that I'm here, being a class that I'm taking, a kind of an intro survey class, one of the introductions of Buddhism more generally, and I think kind of more specifically to, well, I don't want to call it original, but the form found in India, talking about how Buddha is an example of how kind of, as you spoke about the caste system in India, kind of throwing off that caste system and a more kind of egalitarian equality in our ability to achieve, I think it's called moksha, in the different kind of release from the cycle of reincarnation. And so is there something, or like an event or an aspect of people in the type of Buddhism that is practiced here that believe, what is it that makes it to where the belief is that that is not attainable by everybody versus the Buddha kind of himself, I guess?
Yes. So there's so much to say on that question. Yeah, but it is a very important question though. So part of it is there's this idea of Dharma ages, which is a theory that was created where during the Buddha's time there was people who could hear the teaching, they could practice it correctly, and they could attain enlightenment. After that, depending on the calculation, so many hundreds of years, there was a time where there's only people who would hear the teaching and they would do the practice correctly. However, they would not they wouldn't attain enlightenment. And then finally, there was a time when when people could hear the teaching, but they could not practice correctly, and of course, they would not attain enlightenment. And so this is known as the final age of the Dharma. And this was something that was very influential on our founder, so Shinran Shonin, and his understanding of the world. Supposedly, like there's signs that are supposed to show up, but it's like, yeah, there's like a lot of wars, there's like a lot of death, and a lot of poverty and stuff. And so really, it's like, well, we could be be living in it right now. But anyway, he trained very hard from age 9 to age 29, so for 20 years at a Buddhist monastery, realized that he could not make the kind of spiritual fulfillment, attainment, whatever that he wanted to. So then he left the mountain, met his teacher, Honen Shonin, who taught him essentially what our sect of Buddhism is. So they understood that living in this time, this final age of the Dharma, it was not possible to attain enlightenment in this world. And so because of that, it was then important to look to the next life. And I don't know if you noticed in our kyosho, in our kind of like our dogma, but after death, we are supposed to be born into a Pure Land, Amida's Pure Land. So the Buddha up on the altar area right here, this is not Shakyamuni Buddha, the like historical Buddha, which that one is. So that was the Buddha that lived 2,500, 3,000 years ago. This is a symbol of wisdom and compassion, infinite wisdom and compassion that exists all around us. And this is taken from a sutra that the Buddha, or the teachings of the Buddha that the Buddha gave. Supposedly, Amida Buddha created this pure land, or a land where we don't have all the kind of like defilements that exist in this world, and so everything was conducive to attaining enlightenment. So being born in that world, we don't have to worry about all the stuff we have to worry here, and we can just focus solely on attaining enlightenment. And in that world, we're able to then attain enlightenment. And so it's a little bit tricky because like there's a lot of theory on like that world and where it exists, if it exists, how it exists, when or where it exists. But that supposedly is where we would be able to attain enlightenment. However, also within our form of Buddhism, we are within the Mahayana form, which is separate from like the Theravada, which is mostly in like Sri Lanka, like Thailand, that area, a little bit in Vietnam. But anyway, so that one is more focused on like the individual, whereas our sect of Buddhism, Mahayana, the term comes from the word Maha is great, and then Yana would be vehicle, meaning this great vehicle, the metaphor being if we're on one shore and the other shore is enlightenment, all these other schools, they use a pejorative term, Hinayana, which is like smaller vehicle, but they're individuals and they all got their own boat like for themselves trying to go over. However, our boat is this big boat that we're only going to go over to the end when we can get everyone onto this boat. So everyone's essentially enlightenment is important. It's more important than any individual. So we're going to put off our own enlightenment, and that's where actually the idea of the bodhisattva comes from. It's someone who puts off their enlightenment, who gets really, really, really close, but then puts that off in order to come back and help beings. So in the same way, our Pure Land, you go to the Pure Land in order to attain enlightenment, but it's said that there's no one there because everyone that goes gets to that point and then comes back to help the beings in this world to eventually, hopefully, also go to that Pure Land or whatever they need in order to attain enlightenment. And so that's kind of the end goal. Of course, just like all other Buddhists, is enlightenment. However, for us, kind of this more temporary goal is doing what we can to achieve this rebirth into the Pure Land, and in doing so, then we ensure our enlightenment because by going there, automatically you're kind of this like guaranteed to attain enlightenment. So that's a real quick answer, hopefully. I'm sure there's a lot of like holes there still, but yeah. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
I know that there's different styles or sects or whatever, but the Bodhisattva's vow.
Yeah.
That what your iteration of that would be, and then the other second question was, you'd said like if there was something wrong in the life, then there would be possibly something wrong in that next life, but there was ways that you could address that. You said something like that earlier. Mm-hmm. How would that be? Like, what would you do? Like, if something, like, how do you do that?
Sure, yeah. Also, two very good and like important questions. So let's see, the second one was like the next birth and how we do something about that. And then the first one was Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva vow, that's right. Okay, so part of a practice of a bodhisattva is to create these vows. So there isn't necessarily one specific one, but there's ones that will kind of, or they're supposed to be towards, helping other beings attain enlightenment. And then they're said normally in a very specific manner of like, if this doesn't happen, then may I not attain enlightenment. And so for our sect of Buddhism, Amida Buddha, when he was Bodhisattva Dharmakara, which is who he was before the a Buddha, was a bodhisattva, was that we focus on their 48 vows, and specifically the 18th vow, which is something along the lines of like, if the countless beings in the different realms hear my name and repeat it with a true and real mind, and are not born in my pure land, then may I not attain enlightenment. So that one is central to our practice because the Nembutsu, us saying Namo Amida Butsu, which you heard a lot throughout the service, is what we're supposed to be saying with this kind of this true and real mind, which is the true and real mind is an important difference that we have from our founder versus the other disciples of Honen Shonin, his teacher, which, we're all kind of teaching the same thing, but different interpretations of it. But anyway, so that is the different bodhisattva vows are for, like the countless beings. For us particularly, we focus on one vow from one Buddha, but there's lots of bodhisattvas, lots of Buddhas, and they all have many different vows in different forms, depending on like the sutras that you read. But yeah, they all focus on the enlightenment of all beings. Secondly, let's see, what was the second one? Oh yeah, so for us, trying the true and real mind is what's important, and it's often translated as like entrusting heart, but in my opinion, there isn't a better word than like faith, which we try to, as like a national organization, try to avoid because of the Christian connotations. But ultimately, we have faith in lots of things. We have faith when we have a teacher that they're going to teach us the right thing. We have faith when we get into an Uber that they're not going to crash into like the fire hydrant. But like we have faith in different things that we can't explain, right? We can't say like, oh, I should have faith in this, and because I've seen this or something like that. But obviously you can have experiences that put more faith or less faith. Anyway, we're supposed to have faith in Amida Buddha, the infinite wisdom and compassion that surrounds us, this understanding, which is often also termed of as like other power, but I mean like it's also maybe like Buddha power, Buddha effort versus like self-effort. So the reverse of that would be if we focus a lot on ourselves and what we're doing, and this is obviously in a spiritual sense, not in like an actual, you have to get up and like eat breakfast and do stuff. But in terms of our spiritual life, if we're working very hard and we try our best to like make any kind of attainment, we're ultimately going to fail because naturally as human beings, we have a very selfish and egotistical way of existing. That's just how it is. We're born human. Humans are selfish. That's how it is. So in order to let go of that, to release that, the way that we understand it is to put our faith, our understanding into Amida Buddha. And by letting go of everything that we have and just leaving it up to Amida Buddha, then we are able to eradicate that kind of negative karma. And to myself, my own appreciation of this teaching, there is something important to happen to Jodo Shinshu followers, which is called like the turning of the heart. And essentially, no one can tell you that this happens for you. Only you can understand it. But it's said that all of your negative karma, all the bad things that you've done get turned into like good karma, good things. And the way, in my understanding how this is done, is if you truly look at yourself and you understand the things that you've done, how you may have hurt people, then it makes you want to be a better person, right? So it goes to say that there's a saying within Jodo Shinshu that the more ice, the more the water. And it's like the more bad you've done, the more evil you've caused, after that turning of the heart, the better of a person you would be because you recognize how much you've like hurt people. And so someone who's actually lived like a really nice life and hasn't hurt that many people, there wouldn't be that much of a change because they're like, yeah, I just kind of keep doing the same thing. But someone who's lived kind of this like, rough life or terrible life, then they see how much pain they've caused. How could they not spontaneously feel like so guilt-ridden and terrible that they would want to live a much better life? So that's, again, kind of a quick way of explaining like our entire dogma, but yeah. Okay, so let's see, it's 10:20, probably, is there one more? No more, that's it? All right, so we'll close here. I guess I didn't open, but all right, we'll close with Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Okay, thank you everybody for coming. Sorry, I got a jet. I got to go to Florin to do their